The prairie wind howled through the dying daylight as the small frontier town of Red Cradle gathered under the looming scaffold, its wooden beams creaking like skeleton bones in the cold dusk, and the whispering crowd stared ahead as if history itself held its breath. At the center, bound by rough rope, stood a young Apache girl named Sanny, her dark hair tangled with dust and defiance, her chest heaving but eyes burning with a quiet fire that refused to bow. Even as fear scraped her heart raw, false accusations spread like sickness. A rancher's missing cattle, a barn's mysterious fire, a settler's lies, and the town council, blinded by prejudice and desperation, wanted someone to blame, and she was convenient, simple, voiceless in their minds. Though she whispered to herself that she was the daughter of wind and stone and would not break, but the cries of the public roared like wolves, and among the faces stood a rancher named Colt Avery. Tall, broad-shouldered, boots worn from honest work, jaw clenched with something deeper than anger. Shame, because he had seen the fire with his own eyes, seen men wearing red scarves slip through shadows that night, men not of her tribe but of the very council accusing her. Yet fear of power had chained his tongue until now, where the scaffold's rope swayed above her like a serpent. Something inside him snapped like a brittle twig, and he shouldered through the crowd as the judge rasped charges with hollow authority. And Sanny lifted her chin, voice a-tremble but words stabbing clear. "Please, just make it fast," she whispered, not out of surrender but out of exhaustion, and the crowd gasped at her courage, yet Colt froze, struck by the quiet dignity in her eyes, memories crashing. How she once helped his injured horse near the riverbank. How she returned a lost calf to his fence. How she spoke of stars with reverence. Innocence was etched across her like scripture. He stepped onto the platform and shouted that she was being framed, pointing at the red scarf's threads found by his barn's ashes. But the council glared, voices snarling, accusing him of betrayal, stirring the mob's fear like dust devils, and for a moment he faltered, because fear is a prison built by the powerful. But then he saw Sanny's eyes soften, as if she forgave him for arriving late. And he did the unthinkable. He cut the rope with his own hunting knife, grabbed her wrist and leaped from the platform just as fists reached, chaos erupting like a storm, the mob roaring with confusion. The two sprinted through the town's narrow alleys, boots thundering, her breath ragged, his hand guiding, not pulling, because freedom must be chosen, and lantern lights flickered like angry fireflies behind them as the deputies gave chase. Sanny stumbled once, but Colt caught her, whispering that she must trust him. And for reasons she couldn't explain, she did. And together they vanished into the wild plains where moonlight painted silver on sandstone cliffs, hiding in a canyon carved by centuries of rain, hearts pounding like drums of old wars. There in the shadows she confronted him. Why risk everything for her? And he answered that he had lived too long in silence, watching injustice rot his town like termites, and he could not be a coward when her life weighed against their lies. She admitted that when she asked for it to be fast, she wasn't asking for death. She was asking the world to stop torturing her spirit, because sometimes cruelty is slow, and quickness is mercy. Colt's gaze softened, promise glimmering. He would help her, not out of guilt, but admiration, because her bravery woke something long dead inside him. The next days were a blur of hideouts, stolen food, campfires crackling like whispers of hope, and slowly their hands brushed during meals. Their conversations deepened, and they found that the world had tried to brand them enemies, but stars stitched stories above them that said otherwise. Sanny revealed she was orphaned by raiders years ago, her tribe scattered, and she carried guilt for not being strong enough to fight back then. But Colt told her strength wasn't measured by the battles you survived, but by the innocence you refused to surrender. She smiled softly, tears warm against the cold night, and he brushed them gently, a gesture that lit fireworks in her chest. Meanwhile, the council fumed, dispatching bounty riders, twisting the story to portray them as criminals. But truth can outrun lies when hearts burn bright, and soon whispers spread in neighboring towns that Sanny was innocent, that the council's Red Scarf gang started fires to claim more land. Even townsfolk of Red Cradle began to doubt, seeds of truth sprouting like stubborn weeds. Colt and Sanny decided they couldn't hide forever. Justice demanded confrontation, so they rode into the heart of the storm, to a town hall crowded with frightened citizens, presenting stolen ledger books Colt retrieved, proof of secret deals, burned ranches, stolen livestock. Gasps rippled like waves, and Sanny stood tall before them, voice clear, showing no hatred, only truth, explaining that fear blinds and division destroys, and the council's greed fed on their prejudice. One council member fled, guilt cracking under pressure. The other stuttered excuses, but the sheriff, a tired man worn by regret, finally stepped forward, removed his badge, and declared Sani free by law. The crowd erupted not in cheers but in stunned silence. Then slowly applause broke like sunlight through storm clouds. Sani's knees almost buckled, relief flooding her limbs as Colt caught her in his arms, and he whispered again that she was safe now. Soon after, the council was arrested. The Red Scarf Gang disbanded and towns rebuilt their barns with shared hands. Sani chose to stay near Colt's ranch tending horses, planting a small garden that grew stronger each day, mirroring her healing spirit. Their bond, once a fragile ember, grew into a fire they warmed their future by, and though whispers still lingered among some, Sani faced them with dignity, showing that real strength is quiet, patient, unstoppable. At night they sat beneath stars, her head resting on his shoulder, and he vowed never to remain silent against cruelty again. Years later, children gathered around her stories about how a single voice can shatter chains, and she taught them never to fear justice's slow footsteps. The once fear-driven town learned to respect their Apache neighbors, building bridges instead of walls, and the plains breathed easier, winds softer, as if history itself sighed with relief. And as Sani watched the sunset paint gold across the grass, she whispered that life was painful, but love was faster, kinder, merciful, and Colt squeezed her hand, knowing freedom had found them both, because sometimes doing the unthinkable is exactly what the world needs to heal. And justice, like the sunrise, always comes for those brave enough to chase it. And to everyone watching this story unfold across screens, remember this: silence empowers injustice. Courage rewrites fate, and if you felt passion in this journey, if this story opened your heart even a little, make sure you subscribe to the channel, join our growing family, and never miss another powerful story that reminds you that darkness can be defeated by ordinary people choosing to be extraordinary. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and keep riding with us, because the next adventure is coming, and you won't want to miss how it changes you.